So you guys got to tell me why I'm going through my Instagram and I see a headline that says the Japanese boxer Shigetoshi Katari has unfortunately passed away after a title fight against Yamato Hada. And why yesterday I just got back into sparring because my PT cleared me for it, and I went to the boxing gym to spar with my buddy who's making his pro debut in about 3 weeks from now, and he tuned me up pretty decently, and I have a little black eye. I took a few clean shots and combinations, and I don't think that I'm concussed. But yeah, I will monitor my condition because you don't play fighting. And some time away I did forget about this, and that could have been very bad. There was of course supervision, but it only takes one shot in all reality to separate people from their donkeys. So rest in peace to that fighter. The purpose of this video today though is going to be me discussing Dricus Du Plessis and how I think he is going to absolutely smash Khamzat Chimaev at UFC 319. I know I've done some talking about how I don't really like betting here, but my wager for this main event is going to be, count them, 1, 2, 3 smash coins worth a whole 10,000th of 1 cent. So let me know if anybody wants to take me up on my offer. I'm going to for sure be taking the money line on these smash coins with my boy Dricus. I also would have put the same amount of money on Nate Diaz, granted that fight actually happened. But before we go any further, I'm going to address some counter arguments as to why some people may actually think that DDP is going to be the one who gets smoked. And I'm going to talk about why I just don't think it goes down like that. People do this thing online where they call Dricus Du Plessis' style of fighting goofy. And I think this is very undermining. And there's a layer of selective memory that is at play here, where people don't really view Dricus Du Plessis' fights fairly. And it's maybe just because he's always the underdog going into these matchups. Before, whenever he was fighting Strickland for the first time, or even Adesanya, these technically gifted and proven strikers that we think are just so clinical and great, they just get minced by this guy who people on the internet have come to the consensus of just not being very good, or at least very technical, which you don't need to be technical in order to be skilled. There's other things that are more nuanced that go into making a good fighter than just having good technique. People look at the Adesanya fight and they say, wow, Izzy was potentially about 3 or 4 body shots away from sealing this one. On the feet, he was tuning up Dricus, right? He was wearing like gas tank, Dricus was breathing heavy, but Dricus was catching Izzy the whole time. And Izzy was putting on the brave face, and he was wearing the damage well, but it's not like he wasn't getting caught in these sequences. And whenever it really did come down to it, Israel Adesanya did like the Max Holloway point thing, and then he just gave up a takedown super easily. Dricus took the back and then sunk in the RNC, and that was just the end of things. It did look a little bit scary in the 3rd round, but Dricus had control, and he displayed that he was in charge of the pacing from the first bell all the way to the ending of this fight. But Khamzat, he's not a striker. So people argue, Dricus Du Plessis was getting freely manipulated by Derek Brunson in their fight. Derek Brunson, who, he is a good wrestler, but he has cardio issues, and that's the reason why he ultimately lost the fight. But I went back and I rewatched this match. Derek Brunson, even whenever he was by the book winning this fight, he was never actually winning this fight. Dricus Du Plessis came out, he was using his lead leg to set up his other offense, he was kicking the high guard of Derek Brunson, he was kicking the body of Derek Brunson. Derek Brunson ended up catching one of these kicks, and he used it to transition into a takedown. He took side control, and what did Dricus Du Plessis do? Immediately bridge. He immediately bridged in side control, and he shook off Derek Brunson. And he even swept him at one point, and he landed some very meaningful ground and pound that took a lot of the wind out of Derek Brunson halfway into this round after he had exerted a lot of his gas tank and trying to control Dricus on the ground. And then from there, they stand, and Dricus is just whooping that over the course of the 1st round and then all the way through the 2nd round, where he practically finishes Derek Brunson in his full guard, and the corner of Derek Brunson throws in the towel because they know that if they send their fighter back out there, he'd get knocked out again, and he had already been, for all intents and purposes, flatline KO'd by the end of that round. He was very slow to rise, and he needed assistance in getting onto the stool. The reason why there's poignancy in all of these 3 performances that I'm going to talk about, and the last one that I haven't mentioned yet, is because Dricus is really good at being the nail. And whatever I mean by that is, in a fight, there is the hammer, and then there is the nail. There's my buddy who is going to make his pro debut in 3 weeks, and then there is me, coming back after 10 months from an ACL surgery, never having worn headgear or sparred in boxing. Sometimes you're the hammer, and other times you're the nail. And if you're a good fighter, it's important to be able to play both sides of the ball. Great fighters are able to use the role of the nail to flow back into the role of the hammer once the hammer has run out of stamina. Because unlike the actual tool, a hammer inside of the octagon will get tired, and then the nail can become the hammer. And at the point of DDP forcing exhaustion out of literally every single person that he fights in his entire MMA career, if you go through every single fight that he has, he makes everybody get tired. And he has more stamina than him, no matter how he looks. Because before, during this Brunson fight, he had only one nostril. That was another joke that people made, is that his nose was very broken, like Jack Della Maddalena's. I'm not sure how JDM is breathing out of his nose, but Dricus's, it even looked healthier than Jack Della Maddalena's. But Dricus Du Plessis, he only had one nostril for a very long time. The result of this is a lot of mouth breathing in his earlier performances, and it created this false appearance from him, and also a false perception from his opponents that he had completely gassed in moments where he was relatively fresh, like in the Brunson fight. Despite the mouth breathing, Dricus Du Plessis was landing some really nice straight rights and lefts on the chin of Derek Brunson. As a matter of fact, Dricus is beating up most of his ops, and at times where a lot of people remember him losing the fight, like in the Darren Till fight. Because of the way that people talked about those left hands landing from Till, I thought there was a moment where Dricus Du Plessis was dropped, but it was just a foot sweep that Darren Till managed to land as Dricus Du Plessis again went for a kick. So he needs to watch out for his kicking offense against Khamzat Chimaev, because Chimaev will definitely capitalize on a lazy leg kick or body kick that's thrown. He'll catch it and then they'll begin grappling from there. Dricus Du Plessis though is good wherever the fight goes. And he has lots of chin and heart if not anything else. He's very good at preserving himself. After he takes a big shot, if it's even remotely close to damaging Dricus, the shot that lands on him, he's going to retreat towards the cage, and the posturing that he makes, it looks like he's about to get finished. But he's really just chilling and recovering in these moments. Because what he'll do is whenever his back is to that fence, he's going to plant, and then he's going to throw his boxing combinations from there, and they're going to be very effective, and chances are more effective than whatever just hurt him. Darren Till was repeatedly landing a rear elbow with his left arm, and he was backing Dricus up to the cage. Dricus would plant, and then he would throw his cross, and it would smack Darren Till. At the very beginning of the fight, Darren Till was getting controlled in the clinch and just collar tie uppercut, and he ate about 30 of these strikes. I thought he was nearly going to get finished as I watched this live. But it's just the DDP via flying piano or whatever, DDP via bowling ball cutscene after you get a strike. People just like to hate because it doesn't look good, but it doesn't need to look good because the proof is in the pudding. Look at the position that Darren Till ended up in for as good as people said that he did in that fight. And yeah, he had 2 torn knees, but I don't know why people glaze his performance on his behalf like he actually had a chance in there with Dricus. It wasn't like that at all. I feel like there's a lot of false narratives that are being pushed about the fights that Du Plessis has won. Like they were a lot closer than they actually were. No matter what people say about him online, I was hard pressed to find any weaknesses of his on tape that I could be like, oh yeah. Other than the body kicks and those getting caught, Khamzat Chimaev, he doesn't have a clear path to victory here. A further reason why he has no clear path to victory is because this matchup is going to be a welterweight versus a hulking behemoth. Khamzat Chimaev still plans to go back down and fight with Jack Della Maddalena to capture that belt. And I'm not sure if he had factored in the contingency of Islam Makhachev winning that title before he's able to make that move. But look at the way that he looks from 170 to 185 up at the top left corner of the screen right there. It doesn't look like he's cutting down from anything heavier than he would have to make 170. Maybe like more fullness in the chest and in the arms too, but not like a drastic amount of muscle mass that's added onto his frame from 170 to 185. And it's never been that way. And if we were to compare the two, that's Dricus down at the bottom of the screen at 170 on the left side of that split picture, and then on the right side, that's him at middleweight. Dricus Du Plessis is the biggest 6-foot man that God has ever made. I don't know how this man was making 170. He was bone shredded whenever he was doing that weight cut, and that's the reason why he got knocked out by Roberto Soldic in KSW. And that's another thing that people like to bring up, is the fact that Dricus Du Plessis does have a loss in MMA where he was knocked out. But it was at welterweight, and all of Khamzat Chimaev's performances where people argue that he robbed the person that he beat in these matches, they were at 170 as well. Look at the takedown percentages in his fights against Usman and also his fight against Burns as well. He went 2 for 3 on takedowns against a 35-year-old Gilbert Burns. Sean Brady went 7 for 17 on takedowns against a 38-year-old Gilbert Burns. And yes, Khamzat Chimaev definitely displayed more of his striking chops there, but it seemed like he was committing to the striking because he didn't want any problems with Gilbert Burns on the ground. It doesn't really make sense why he didn't aim to wrestle more. I think that he knew that as far as stamina conservation went, it would be a lot smarter for him to avoid the grappling because they would just have been scrambling the whole time. Sean Brady was down for whatever, and so he just kept shooting. I thought it was very uncharacteristic of Khamzat Chimaev to turn that fight into what it became. I didn't think that was a good performance at all, even though people consider it a classic fight. That's just because of Gilbert Burns fanboys probably. But the takedown percentage against Usman, 4 for 12. And Usman, he's kind of an enigma, right? He's like getting up there in age, But he's still beating these young contenders who are sprawling, and people are saying that they should be next for the title, like Buckley. And he's doing it with the wrestling. But at this point, Usman is not even trying to disguise the fact that his knees are bad and that he's dealing with all his health stuff. And Khamzat Chimaev couldn't take him down consistently. And if that was a 5-rounder, my opinion is that Khamzat Chimaev would have probably lost that one because he was fading. I think that this fight is going to go a lot like the fight that we saw between Nick Klein and Andre Pulayev at UFC Vegas 108, Tyra versus Park, where Nick Klein came out and he tried to sub Pulayev immediately by taking him down and muscling him into one corner of the cage. He took the back, and Pulayev was just too physically strong to accept that bottom position, and he stood back up. And Nick Klein, he tried again to take him down, and he was successful. But again, Pulayev was just too physically capable to be manipulated in the way that Nick Klein was expecting to be able to manipulate Andre Pulayev. And from there, Pulayev was able to get back to his feet, create some distance, and start touching Nick Klein. What ultimately happened was a body shot TKO as he threw a kick that landed flush into the liver. There's a good chance that this fight mirrors that one exactly. As I was watching it, I was thinking, this is a lot like Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev at home. Another thing that gives me swelling confidence to predict this emphatic Dricus W that we're going to be watching next Saturday in Chicago is the fights that Dricus Du Plessis had on the Pretoria regional scene. These are some of the greatest fights I've ever seen in my life. And I'm definitely gassing them up too. They're not some of the greatest fights that I've seen in my life from like a technical standpoint. At the very bottom left corner, he fought one of his ops, and the promotion that he was fighting was called EFC. I don't know what it stands for, but EFC. This dude comes out, and Dricus Du Plessis throws a kick that gets caught. Dricus pulled guard, jumping forward, while this man had all of his weight on his front foot, and it snapped his leg like a 2x4. And the ref called it as soon as they hit the ground. I had to rewatch this like 3 times to see what actually even happened. I can't show you the injury, but I think it's worth going back and watching all of his fights on the Pretoria regional scene as a pro because it gives you a better idea of the thing that makes Dricus such a good fighter and why he's so successful even now. And as I'd mentioned before, his durability, it makes all of these fights great watches. And aside from the fact that it's not like he wasn't talking trash back then too. Him and the champion that he beat to become double champ once he moved up to 185 in this division, they were going back and forth for a long time. They were going back and forth saying some crazy stuff to each other at the press conferences. Dricus Du Plessis told the guy that he gassed out in his fights, and then he slapped him at the presser. And what did Dricus do? Nothing. He just turned the other cheek, and he let his fighting do the talking for him whenever the time came. And he beat that dude up, and he forced a really messy shot out of his opponent. He catches a guillotine, and he finishes it. And that was it, and he emotes on him for like 2 minutes because of how nasty their beef was. 15 to 25 minutes in the cage with Dricus Du Plessis it's a cruel and unusual punishment. And most people, they just can't last it. What ends up happening is Dricus Du Plessis sends both himself and his opponent into the state of complete exhaustion. And they're so fatigued that they can't even stand anymore most of the time. So they're shooting takedowns to try to wrestle him. Or they crumple under the force of his shots. And Dricus is able to take the back for free. A lot of his wins are by RNC. Or some type of choke, whether it be the RNC or a front choke. And once it gets finished, the ref pulls Dricus off of his opponent. And they all make the same expression on the ground. It's something like the guy up at the top left there. It's like they don't even believe it. That they got beaten in the fashion that it happened. I'm telling you, these guys are spending like an extra 3 minutes on the ground just trying to piece together in their head what just happened to them. Even though I'm saying that we should respect him a bit more, I would never sit here and act like these fights aren't funny. But it's just because of the insane dog that lives inside of the chest of Dricus Du Plessis. Dricus's performances from a technical perspective are a lot better to watch now just because he's gotten better at fighting overall. But going back to God-given gifts, this desire to win and this willingness to do whatever it takes to get a win, you can't put that in a fighter. They have to be born with it. Another thing that's worth noting is Khamzat Chimaev's medical history. Arman Sarukian announced that Khamzat Chimaev is being monitored through his training sessions to make sure that he's not overtraining. And that could be because he's still immunocompromised like he was in his bout fighting coronavirus in 2019, or with this lung infection that he had a couple of months leading out from UFC Saudi Arabia that made it so Robert Whittaker had to fight with Ikram Aliskerov at this time. I think that was the reason why there was a short notice replacement of that opponent. Things got so bad for him that he even thought about retiring at one point. He shared a lot of the health stuff that was going on with him. He had broken his hand against Gilbert Burns. I think that was the first thing. And then he'd gotten this lung virus that made his face all puffy. So he went under treatment for that, and he has 3 photos of it. In 2019, he was posting photos of himself coughing up strawberry Kool-Aid into the sink. I don't know why he was doing that. It's definitely not anything else except for strawberry Kool-Aid. And then he also got a sty in his eyeball too. I mean, that'll happen to me as well whenever I'm looking at this screen for too long. But Khamzat Chimaev, he's never displayed great cardio, and he's never fought in 5 rounds in the UFC. His fight with Robert Whittaker was the first scheduled 5-round bout that he's been in. And the 3-round fights that he's been in with Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman, we've seen him nearly max out in those fights. So my question is, what if he has to fight 5 rounds? What if Dricus Du Plessis doesn't just go away? And I think that it's going to be a lot like this, and we're going to find out. I think that it's going to be Khamzat Chimaev potentially getting finished, because he's not going to have anything left to give. And Dricus is just not going to stop until he wins. And that's the whole point of me bringing up the Pretoria stuff. I don't see Dricus Du Plessis stopping or slowing down until he stops Khamzat Chimaev or until the fight is over. So let's weigh the potential outcomes. Khamzat Chimaev has no clue how to pace himself, so he's going to come out and maybe look like he's going to strike at range with Dricus for a little bit, but ultimately his plan is going to be to hoist Dricus up in the air, reminiscent of how he did Li Jingliang in their fight. He's going to throw him down on the ground, and then he's going to take the back, get his hooks in, maybe sink in a body triangle, rear naked choker, face crank. And that's one outcome. The second outcome is exactly what I saw in the Derek Brunson fight, where Dricus Du Plessis does go down in the fight, he gets taken down, and it's likely off of one of these kicks that gets caught by Khamzat Chimaev. And then Khamzat Chimaev tries to control a position like side control, or like mount, or even stacks Dricus Du Plessis. And Dricus Du Plessis he's too Frankenstein built to be controlled by human men. Or at least 185-pound men. And what's going to happen is Dricus Du Plessis is going to bridge, he's going to sweep, he's going to funk roll out of there. Whatever he's got to do to escape, he's going to escape, he's going to get back on the feet, and he's going to start pinging this man. And he's going to do it across however many rounds it takes for Khamzat Chimaev to completely slow down and gas out. I do not see Dricus Du Plessis fatiguing before Khamzat Chimaev completely does. And if Dricus Du Plessis weathers an early storm, he's going to make Khamzat Chimaev poop or throw up in the cage. But it's not like Dricus is just going to idly wait for this shot to come and to not do anything about it, because he's also a fast starter. And he always leaves enough gas in the tank to win a decision as well. So that's also worth considering here, is that it's not going to be like the Robert Whittaker fight, where Whittaker is going to be anxiously anticipating this takedown to come, and then it does, and then, oh my god, now he's getting choked. No. Dricus Du Plessis may shoot the first takedown of the fight. And yeah, I've drawn out the different game plans of the two fighters in my head based off of the footage and how I think that they're going to take the matches, but whenever we're dealing with MMA Mike Tyson and also the little train that could, you don't really know what's going to happen in this matchup. I feel like the outcome could be completely random and off the cuff, and it may not have anything to do with the stuff that I have displayed here. So the closing point that I want to make is that DDP is a great middleweight champion. He's active as a belt holder. If Khamzat Chimaev gets the belt, we may not see him fight for more than once every year and a half. People would even potentially start petitions to get this guy stripped, or he might even just vacate the title due to not wanting to fight anymore, or visa issues, or whatever it may be. Khamzat Chimaev as a middleweight champion would be an absolute nightmare. If he does beat Dricus, there's likely nobody who can match him skill for skill on the ground, or at any other game in this division, because he's just going to force it into a ground fight, and he's going to choke this person, whoever it may be. I thought at one point Bo Nickel would be the dude to beat Khamzat Chimaev, and he did too. If DDP sells this, it's either going to be Imavov or Rainer de Ritter as the boys who could upset Khamzat Chimaev. But that's what it would be. It would be an upset. Even in a fight against Dricus Du Plessis, I would say that those two fighters winning, it would be an upset. Just because this is skill for skill, the best matchup that can be made at 185 right now. I'm very grateful for the fact that we get to watch it. Dricus Du Plessis, he will fight anyone as well. That's another thing that makes him a great middleweight champion. He has a fun style that is both violent and capable of producing finishes. He also has no losses in the UFC, which is kind of like he's undefeated. If all you can find on tape of him losing is a TKO where it didn't even look that bad against this Roberto Soldig guy who knocked out a clearly dehydrated 170 Dricus Du Plessis. Dricus is also a wordsmith, and that's just kind of the icing on the cake as far as all of this goes as well. Not only is it fun to watch him fight, it's fun to listen to him talk. And he has this way of getting under the skin of all the people that he gets into the cage with. And I wonder how he's going to dig under Khamzat Chimaev's. And I wonder what he'll say to him to elicit a reaction to make him lose his cool at the presser, because that's been a consistent theme of his last however many fights, is he always says something that pisses off his opponent. The funniest part about this guy is that he'll really sing to your bitch like Drake too. He's like a full-fledged musician. He plays the guitar. There's this song called Ali Mane by an artist named Ampy from South Africa, and it's featuring Dricus Du Plessis. I think we should all go listen to it right now. But yeah, that's going to be my video, you guys. Tell me if you agree with this take or not. I have been the Dricus Glazer since I came out of my mother. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, please, if you did enjoy the upload up until this point. I will catch you in the next one, fellas. Peace out.